What's up guys, it's Jordan here from SwitchWatch with today's review of Little Town Hero from Game Freak. Before we get into it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're new to this channel. Not only will you get our lovely Switch content, but also be in with the chance of winning a Nintendo Switch Lite plus a copy of The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening once we reach 50,000 subscribers. It could be you. Subscribe. Little Town Hero follows the story of Axe, or whatever you decide to name him, as he resides in this eponymous town. It's a secluded, quaint place safe from outside monsters thanks to the protection of the castle and its soldiers. But he wants to get out and go for an adventure. It turns out that adventure comes to him, as fiends increasingly get into the once safe town. Axe's surprising affinity for battle puts him at the forefront of the defense. I was quite surprised at just how much of a focus they put into the story here. There's plenty of cutscenes and dialogue just like you'd find in any standard JRPG. It's nicely written too. Characters have some depth even though there's a bit of cartooniness thrown in. It's actually funny too, with dollops of mild humor thrown in to bring you along. I went in with zero expectations of a story but came out really impressed. I was chuckling away at the surprisingly good writing here. So the gameplay of Little Town Hero is fairly unique and left field for a higher budget indie game. And yes, I'm defining it as indie because let's face it, it's not a big budget title like Pokémon. Its roots are definitely indie with a bit of weight behind it, I suppose. Like all of Game Freak's prior adventures freed from the shackles of Pokémon, when they do these games they always need to be unique, something a bit different, have a gimmick in that. And even though it may have been done before, has that extra bit of charm and polish to it. While it does have earrings of a JRPG, I think you will come out somewhat disappointed if you get the wrong idea. You have the standard walking around the town, talking to people and so on, but the battles are something entirely different. If I'm going to try and explain it broadly with a comparison, it reminds me of a card battler or even just like top trumps, you know, the kind where the card with the highest number wins. Perhaps that's doing it an injustice because it feels far more visceral and deep than that, but just to get you on board with the overall concept, it's a fine comparison. Stick with me because I think even though you may glaze over my explanation, I think I do a decent job, better than the game itself actually does. In these one-on-one fights, you have a selection of potential skills to use. They are categorized in different colors, red for attack, yellow for defense, and blue for what I would describe as magic or skills, perhaps. The former two have their individual power and defense stats. The one you choose is pitted against the one the enemy chooses, and they'll clash and take each other's defense down, and if it gets to 0, it breaks. The goal is to break all of the enemy's moves in one turn, which will give you a chance turn to take away some of the opponent's health or shield. It's not an easy task considering the random drawing of your skills, as well as the limited skill points that you have to activate them. Plus, in order to take their health down, you must have a red attack skill still available when the enemy is completely broken. Despite shields also having attack points, they do no good in that situation. That's not all though. There are battle points you can use to revive destroyed skills or perhaps swap them out, and you will probably need to do this in order to overcome the adversary. There's also mixing skills too. It seems overwhelming at first because there's even more going on than I actually mentioned, since it's a lot to take in, although the game is kind enough to introduce things step by step. And once you're on the second or third big boss, it all of a sudden clicks into place for you, and you can see how everything is a cog in the system. It's a beautifully made machine, slick, everything has its place and is important in how it all comes together. It's a system that is a sight to behold. There are two kinds of battles. There are the smaller battles, which usually pit you against your rival or some other human or normal animal thing. These are contained and frill-free, often ending up more like a puzzle battle than anything else. But then you have the big battles against the giant enemy monsters, which add extra layers of depth to the battle. For a start, they are played out on a massive battlefield which is segmented, kind of like a board game. After every turn with the beast, you can roll between 1 to 4 spaces, or if you use a special ability, anywhere you want. What's the point of this? Well, certain spaces can provide a nice bonus for you. Perhaps an ally can assist you in some way, you can pick up a new ability from villagers, and even use environmental gimmicks to your advantage, for example hitting a cannon to damage the enemy's life or even throwing a chicken at them. These are especially good for getting a quick needed hit on the enemy. The constant switch between large-scale fights and smaller ones is welcome because they both offer enjoyment in their own way. I do think the smaller battles take place with your rival far too much though. I know that in the end it doesn't really matter who you're fighting, but it's still annoying to see him say, "You'll have to fight me first," over and over again like a forced blockade, rather than something naturally occurring within the story. It gets comically frequent at points, and any deviation from the rival battle was very welcome. Aside from the battles, you have your standard side quests where you help villagers out with their problems, although slightly on the mundane side, you do get useful rewards such as extra points to improve your battle skills or armor, and even get some of them to join you on the battlefield. Plus, the writing is often quite funny and develops the characters around the village, which I found quite interesting. It's all going well for Little Town Hero, right? Well, yes it is. Everything mentioned is pretty much lovely, aside from the constant battles with the rival. But that brings me on to the difficulty. Little Town Hero may look like a cute-to-kids game, but it does not pull any punches. The rival battles are fair game, one-on-one, few distractions, but the big main boss battles, holy cow, I was not expecting this. Now, I don't mind difficult games at all. You know I love arcade shooters, but the thing about Little Town Hero is that it's cruel and vindictive. I bet you weren't expecting me to say that. This is a very, very tactical game, perhaps too tactical. After 3 hours, I pretty much hated Little Town Hero. Like, I genuinely did not enjoy playing it. I thought it was very badly balanced and spiteful. And in some ways, after more than a dozen hours, I do still think that's the case in some regards. Although as time went on and I learned, I began to sway towards positivity. But hear me out as to why I really disliked it at first. Resources are painfully limited, you often get bad hands, sometimes you really can't help but take a hit, and recovering from certain situations looks to be an almost impossible task. The enemy special moves are just vindictively annoying. Each one has their own special way to make you despair, where they just delete your skills on a whim and break them regardless of how much defense you have left, or perhaps make your attacks more expensive to use, punish you for having too many attacks. The endless ways they try to find to be annoyingly spiteful is just the wrong way to go about building hurdles for the player. I think they could have done this in a less hateful way because there were many times where it just didn't make it fun at all, and you'll find yourself telling the game to piss off at times. I'm very concerned about people picking this up and wondering what on earth they've let themselves in for. And believe it or not, a couple of my peers who also do video reviews sent a very worried message to me asking what this game is all about, how to do it, and if it's just them who find it difficult and hard to understand. Which gave me some relief that I was managing to get further than them early on and also shared similar concerns. I think the developers have misjudged their game. There's a lot of learning to do, which is fine, a lot of experimentation and a lot of mistakes to make to know, okay, let's not do that again. A lot of frustration. Battles can last 40 minutes to an hour, and you can lose at any moment thanks to one small mistake, and you can easily lose all that time. There will be times when you lose a whole hour to this game, thanks to one small mistake or the game just being a dick. It can be done and it will be done. You will be able to do this once it clicks properly for you, and you will get a lot of enjoyment out of it. I did, eventually, but there are times of despair when the game just does everything in its path to be a dick. Just be warned, I have a very love-hate relationship with this game, and I'm worried that you will too. Visually, Little Town Hero is stunning, and I don't use that word lightly. Now, of course, I don't mean in a graphically intensive way, but just in the art style and use of color. It's cel-shaded and kind of reminds me of Dark Chronicles or Dark Cloud 2, with the very chunky feeling that will surely stand the test of time. The amount of color is a feast for the eyes too. It may be one of the best looking games that I have ever played. Again, just in the use of color and style. On both the TV and in handheld mode, it will brighten up your day and remind you of just how wondrous and happy videos can be. Performance-wise, it is solid enough. It's only 30 frames per second, I believe, according to my editing software, but I would not have guessed that. It looks clear enough to be 60 to me. And there are some very minor performance issues, like with attacks they may kind of chug a little bit, but it's nothing major and did not affect my enjoyment at all. The audio is pretty good too. I didn't know this before playing the game, but it has been done by Toby Fox of Undertale fame. And trust me, I have zero fanboyism. Little Town Hero's music is nice and catchy. I had instant vibes of a Yoshi game though. I'm not kidding. Like within a minute of the opening cutscene, I was like, this sounds exactly like a Yoshi game soundtrack. A good one though. It's playful and kind of natural, like they were playing on some random things they'd found laying around, like a skiffle band would. It's not phenomenal or anything, but it is nicely done. There's no voice acting here, unless you count the little tweets characters make like Banjo-Kazooie, but a little more chilled than that. I kind of wish they used a slightly less annoying sound, but it's a minor complaint. despite being made by Game Freak, it is a digital-only title for the time being. On the eShop, Little Town Hero is priced at $24.99 in the US, £22.49 in the UK, and in Europe it's $24.99. That is on the premium end for an indie game, and I think the production gone into this, it's an unsurprising price. As you may tell from the gameplay overview, I'm not entirely enamored with it, but I think they've priced it right for the content and production gone into this one. You feel like you're playing a properly polished game, even if they've gone in the wrong direction for me personally. If this game resonates with you more, then you'll get your value's worth for sure. It's a full-fat game practically. I would not be surprised to see this one get a physical release sometime down the line. Limited Run Games recently provided a release for one of Game Freak's other titles, Giga Wrecker Alt, and I think this one will probably head that way sometime down the line. Overall, for me, Little Town Hero is a curious case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. In one form, it's this lovely, charming game with beautiful visuals, great writing, nice music, and a battle system that is almost a work of art. But then, the ugly side rears its head and shows just how cruel, annoying, and vindictive it can be, and that seeps out all of the fun of what should be an essential eShop title. Don't get me wrong, it is playable, doable, and enjoyable if you have the patience and the guile, but it's disappointing they balanced it all wrong in my opinion. This lovely game should not have been a slog or a chore, but at times it very much was, and it pains me to say that. It could have been much higher, a 7 out of 10. Now perhaps head over to watch my review of The Witcher 3, another big release this week, and also the weekly series that I put together telling you all the Switch games releasing physically this week. Well worth having a look for you collectors out there. I'll see you guys over there, take care.